This is CBC Vancouver News.
All of a sudden, we're going to dismantle the ability of parents like me from sending our kids to a traditional school. It's so disheartening.
Taking steps to tackle overcrowding in Surrey schools. Why some parents are upset over the idea of turning traditional schools into regular elementary schools. Plus,
excluding animals from, important parts of our community like housing and food security and emergency management has serious consequences.
Sparking change. Why the BC SPCA is urging voters to keep animal welfare top of mind this provincial election. Also,
each one attempts to bridge the distance between Indigenous folks and settlers.
How an Indigenous art installation is serving as a catalyst for reflection. Hello, thanks for joining us. I'm Janella Hamilton. Surrey School District is one of many districts grappling with overcrowded classrooms. As the largest and fastest growing school district in BC, the school board has been looking at ways it can help address the issue and is now considering turning its 3 traditional schools into regular elementary schools. But as Sarab Sandhu reports, the move is drawing backlash from some parents who want to retain traditional schooling for students.
Carly Watts is a mother of 3. 2 of her kids go to Cloverdale Traditional School in Surrey.
Our school, it does benefit from smaller class sizes, and it benefits from an environment that fosters that element of responsibility, of discipline, of like a high academic standard.
But soon that school model may change. Now that Surrey school trustees are considering an option that would see the district's 3 traditional schools become regular elementary schools instead.
All of a sudden, we're going to dismantle the ability of parents like me from sending our kids to a traditional school. It's so disheartening. It's upsetting.
The president of the Surrey District Parent Advisory Council says she's heard other parents echo similar concerns.
There's a sense of crisis and about impending change and not knowing what that might look like.
At a meeting last week, school trustees asked staff to report back on the idea of converting Surrey's traditional schools, which include Cloverdale Traditional, Surrey Traditional and McLeod Traditional, in an attempt to tackle chronic overcrowding in the district.
We've asked our staff to move forward with the consultation, to go out and meet with parents and have a conversation with parents. There's a number of opportunities out there, both online and in person.
Timoshak says accommodating new students has become a challenge due to lack of classroom spaces, and the move can increase resources.
The provincial government doesn't look at choice programs to fund for the physical expansion of the school. So we can't expand the school right now as it sits. But if we convert it to a community-based school or an in-catchment school, we could be in line for some potential funding to expand these schools.
He argues with almost similar curriculums, there's not much that separates a traditional school from regular elementaries. Whitmore says all Surrey schools are nearly over capacity and enrollment is only expected to grow.
This is no longer about luxury choices, but this is now choosing between which child in Surrey are we going to support.
A public consultation forum will be held on November 6th before staff present their recommendations to the board on December 11th. Surrey Sandhu, CBC News, Surrey.
Younger voters could have a big impact on the BC election that's just 6 days away. But their strength in numbers will only count if they fill out a ballot. Yvette Brand has more on what may drive them to have their say.
Less than a week from Election Day and the biggest voting bloc, young people have the potential to turn BC politics on its head. The leaders are taking notice.
People are thinking about leaving this province. 1 in 2 youth can't see a future by staying in British Columbia.
Conservative leader John Rustad appealing to the frustration among young people, and his message resonated with some.
It's like that stat that Rustad mentioned, like 1 of 2 youth is like thinking of getting the hell out of here.
Is that you?
Because, yeah, I'd say it's a thought that's come to my mind. So definitely it's like, why would you work in a place where you can make this much and the cost is this much?
Youth are a tricky one. There's rare elections, even around the world, where youth have transformed and made an election different than what it could have been.
Rising costs, especially related to housing, are a major factor, says this pollster.
It's affordability. They can't afford to pay the rent. So, the 28-year-olds are living in their parents' basements because they can't afford a place. Their wages don't support that.
And while young people have historically voted more progressively, he says in this tight race, more than a third of people aged 18 to 35 are leaning to the right.
There just seems to be a movement afoot across the country and in BC towards the right. And that trend's been entrenched for a couple of years now.
Many feel failed by current leaders.
Younger generations in the past, when they're in university or at that stage of life formation, there'd always been a greater sense of hope.
We've had the NDP in government for a while, and perhaps they're not seeing the change that they expected.
This 19-year-old political science student says there's a hunger for change, but options are limited.
Because I feel like now there's just like two choices. It's very polarized.
Pollsters stress to swing this election, young voters would need to turn out in larger numbers than usual. Yvette Brenn, CBC News, Vancouver.
As we head into the final week of the election campaign, BC NDP leader David Eby is urging Green voters to back the NDP to keep John Rustad's BC Conservatives from forming government.
The stakes are higher in this election than they've ever been before. This time, let's stick together.
In a statement today, Green Party leader Sonia Furstenau pushed back against the NDP's plea, saying people should support the candidate of their choice. Furstenau says electing Green Party MLAs would ensure the legislature isn't dominated by the NDP or Conservatives. We spoke to potential voters today in the riding of West Vancouver's Sea to Sky.
Well, I think the Greens are underrated. I can't understand why they're more popular, because the news is full of climate change, the effect on people's lives and the future.
Looking at all of the candidates, I feel like the Green Party does hit a lot of those points and things that matter to our generation and to citizens in this area.
BC Conservatives did not hold a campaign event today, but yesterday Rustad said if elected, he would make cuts to the province's Clean BC program that aims to reduce harmful climate emissions by 40% by 2030. The Conservative leader has previously claimed the BC NDP's plan to favor non-fossil fuel-burning technologies such as EVs and heat pumps would put the province into an electricity deficit. With Election Day quickly approaching, the BC SPCA is calling on political parties to take action in advancing animal welfare in the province. As Michelle Morton reports, the society is urging voters to advocate for change.
Let's go. Come on, let's go.
Like many pet owners in British Columbia, Kathy Powelson sees her dog Henry as a family member.
We understand so much more about animal behavior, that they really are sentient beings and they feel so many of the same emotions that we do.
To give pets like Henry and farm animals a voice in the October 19th election, the BC SPCA says it's asking political parties to consider these 6 policy recommendations.
We have done some surveying of British Columbians as part of our campaign, and pet-friendly housing, emergency management, farmed animal welfare, and pet food banks have typically sort of come out on top.
Herring says these recommendations are not just animal issues.
Excluding animals from, important parts of our community like housing and food security and emergency management has serious consequences for our people in our communities.
CBC reached out to the 3 main political parties about these recommendations. The BC NDP says it's committed to making purpose-built rentals pet-friendly. The Green Party says it's open to exploring a further expansion of post-emergency supports for pets and their guardians. And the BC Conservatives did not respond to multiple requests for comment. One animal law lawyer is applauding the SPCA's calls and is glad to see the focus is not just on pets.
Most farms operate with thousands of animals behind windowless walls without the ability of people to get onto their farms to have their own objective assessment whether the animals are properly taken care of. I think we need to have a robust inspection and enforcement function, and that would include having security cameras in farms as well.
I really hope that they take these recommendations seriously. The BC SPCA has put in a lot of thought into this work.
Meanwhile, the SPCA is also encouraging voters to tell their candidates directly about which animal welfare issues matter most to them. Michelle Morton, CBC News, Vancouver.
The chief of the Williams Lake First Nation says it's important to continue to share information about a former Caribou residential school. The First Nation just released an interim report about its investigation at the St. Joseph's Mission Residential School and Onward Ranch properties. It found at least 55 children died or disappeared while attending the residential school. That's more than triple the number recorded for the institution in the National Centre for Truth and Reconciliation Memorial Register.
And we're trying to be accountable to every single Canadian out there to show them, prove to them that that work is being done on these sites. You know, our team has worked hard. Our team has been very diligent in uncovering the truth and doing that research and making sure that we're talking and getting those witness testimonies, doing the geophysical work, and we need to share it. Everybody wants that information.
Sellers says conversations continue with the 48 different First Nations that had students attend the former residential school, and they will be consulted before any decisions about the site are made. This coverage can be upsetting and invite painful memories or feelings. If you or someone you care about is looking for support, you can reach out to the National Residential School Crisis Line at 1-866-925-4419. It operates 24 hours a day and is available for survivors, intergenerational survivors, and their loved ones. An Ontario Métis artist has crisscrossed the country, creating more than 150 art installations as part of a journey of hope and healing. The new exhibition opened at the Kelowna Art Gallery this weekend. We caught up with the artist as she explains how her work serves as a catalyst for reflection while also addressing the decolonization of public spaces.
This is the 177th textile installation that I've created across Canada, and each one attempts to bridge the distance between Indigenous folks and settlers, and it's just to start conversations about decolonization in public spaces and working towards reconciliation. The whole project, Hope and Healing Canada, which is a hashtag all one line, came out of the discovery of unmarked graves at Kamloops, and more specifically to Canadians' reaction to the new knowledge, and I'll use that like air quotes around that, the new knowledge that there were graveyards at schools. And so that was sort of, but it was all happening during COVID, and so perhaps that's why so much attention was paid to it. That's what it came out of, is how do I, not in a non-confrontational way, start a conversation at spaces like this that tend to tell stories of just one demographic, and start telling stories of all the people in the community, not just one specific group. The color red is the most powerful color, but it's also a racial slur, so that's why I chose to use it. Purple, because of our connection to the crown. Orange, in homage to truth and reconciliation and every child matters. And yellow, which to me represents those that we've lost.
After a 5-year hiatus, Vancouver's popular ghost train ride is returning from the dead.
What did you like about it?
I like the skeletons.
Like, we obviously now have a little one, and pre-COVID we came just as a couple, and it's really nice to be able to bring him and show him, like, you know, this tradition, this really nice Vancouver traditions.
I ordered them the very first day. So I was, because I knew it was going to be a real scramble to get tickets.
The Vancouver Park Board says 26,000 tickets were available, but the demand was so high, tickets sold out immediately. The Park Board says tickets are non-refundable and non-exchangeable, and if there are no shows, then the train will choo-choo on without those guests. This year's train is operating at increased capacity and includes 2 accessible carriages for people with mobility challenges. The Stanley Park Ghost Train runs until October 31st. Still ahead, nearly 3 months after wildfire ravaged the town of Jasper, there's a major hurdle on its path to recovery. We'll bring you more on that story after the break. The road to recovery after Jasper's wildfire has hit a new barrier. The fire left it without enough homes, and that has many people scrambling to make sure they have a place to stay. The CBC's Sam Sampson has the story.
Mere steps separate this trailer and this house from devastation.
And it survived. As you see, it was pretty close.
Svetoslav Rudd and his wife made this camper their temporary home while workers repair their rental house. Some who did the same are back home already, but trailers have to come off the street soon.
They already broadcasting that should be snow with the rain, like in the next week.
Housing has been a struggle since July's wildfire destroyed a third of the town. Jasper was already short 600 housing units before the fire. Now it's more like 1,400. Hotels are trying to strike a balance ahead of ski season, hoping to divide the rooms equally between residents, workers here for the rebuild, and tourists.
It feels a lot like COVID, where you're kind of adapting to the situation moment by moment.
Essential workers who lost their homes were given first dibs. Many are put up in local hotel rooms, mostly funded by the province. That includes jobs in healthcare, government, education, and utilities. Everyone else is on their own for now.
I also feel that I'm an integral part of this community.
Denise Millette and Chuck Cantley work and volunteer in Jasper. They cobbled together house-sitting gigs to stay close to their destroyed property this winter, with no help, they say, from officials.
It was kind of being put out there by all levels of government that there would be some kind of interim housing for everybody. Now, because we're deemed not essential, we are fending for ourselves.
There is housing coming, but the first round is already spoken for. This is one of 3 sites where interim housing will go in Jasper. Now take a look, they're already starting work to put in utilities. The hope is that they can house essential workers before December.
Unfortunately, we're going to have to rely on residents to continue to be innovative, to continue to find solutions that work for them.
A push for patience as everyone tackles this monstrous cleanup. Sam Sampson, CBC News, Jasper, Alberta.
Here we have a live shot of Science World tonight. I'll have your full forecast coming up next. Environment Canada has issued a rainfall warning for BC's north coast. People living in the inland sections have been dealing with heavy rain this long weekend, and there could be more downpours and possible flooding. The weather agency expects rainfall to total roughly 60 millimeters for Terrace and up to 100 millimeters for Kitimat before the heavy rain tapers off overnight and into Monday morning. Flash floods and localized flooding are possible. Rivers and creeks on the north and central coasts and northern Vancouver Island are expected to rapidly rise, and officials say landslides may also occur. All right, now it's time to take a peek at our weather, starting with the precipitation map. Let's just go back to starting it on Monday. Oh, my clicker doesn't work here. There we go. As we can see throughout the week, lots of rain on our way for many parts of the province. That is that green there on the map. And heading into our tonight forecast, again, a very wet one for many parts of the province. 9 overnight in Fort St. John, 10 on the island in Victoria, and 12 with some heavy rain in Tofino. In tomorrow's forecast, 16 with a mix of sun and clouds for Fort St. John, 16 with a mix of sun and clouds for Cranbrook, but everywhere else looks like it's going to see a little bit of rain. And heading into the 5-day forecast for Metro Vancouver, yes, we are going to have a rainy Thanksgiving Monday, but it looks like it's going to dry up and be a bit more overcast for Tuesday with a high of 17, and we may see a little sun by Thursday. A BC hobby farmer wants to change the way Canadians think about blindness. Peter Field and his partner live on 20 acres of remote land outside of Ashcroft with 6 dogs, chickens, and sheep. As Shelley Joyce tells us, he thinks more people should know about the history of blindness in Canada.
At the age of 14, due to glaucoma, we had a summer cottage north of Toronto, and it was surrounded by farm. I always wondered what it would be like to work on a farm. This was kind of like a dream come true, in the sense that how many years, 50 years had gone by, and here I've got my own farm.
At 63, Peter Field has rewritten his story and is living a life that he had once only dreamed about. After a 28-year career with the federal government, Peter moved to BC from Ontario.
When it came to retirement or semi-retirement, it was just really a natural thing for me to look at some place where I could spend a lot of time outdoors. The view, I mean, obviously I can't see the view, but I can still appreciate it, is stunning, and it's just a beautiful place to be.
When Peter is not outside, feeding the chickens, tending the garden, he's inside the farmhouse, working on a podcast that he co-hosts with 3 other Canadians who navigate life without sight.
I do think people don't understand yet the capabilities and potential of people who are blind. We're here, we have potential, we have capacity. Don't be afraid to talk to us. We more and more want to be included and are included in Canadian society. I don't think a lot of people know the history of blind Canadians. We've had a history of eugenics. We've had a history of poor education. Us telling our history and our story allows us to move on. It allows us to understand where some of these messages and stigma about what it means to be blind have come from, and we can put that aside and live our own story.
That is your late news for Sunday, October 13th. Thanks so much for joining us tonight. And for those who are celebrating this long weekend, happy Thanksgiving. Good night.